Dog shit. Literal dog shit. There is always a better option than Grim. This may be the newest operator, but he's also the worst in the game. Let's just hope the new season brings us someone a little bit stronger, which is the exact same thing we were thinking last season when Sense came out. But hey, here he is at number 64. These orbs are clunky as hell, have hitboxes the size of Africa, and there's really no sense in playing Sense when smoke grenades are basically just as effective, meaning you can pick literally any other op with smokes and have an actual ability on top. Number 63 might come as a surprise to many of you, but I really don't think Cali is that bad. I just think that every other operator above her is more consistent and impactful in most circumstances. Cali's gadget is fairly weak, but she also struggles with killing potential. All I know is whenever that sniper is in my hands, I am putting myself in the Lord's hands, and this is not a religious channel, so that really is saying a lot. Blackbeard is next, and I think he's overhated, but he's also just misunderstood. As long as you're playing an entry style and pursuing gunfights, Blackbeard can be used in his peak form, which is still the 4th worst operator in the game. However, if you want to take our number 62 here and make him number 65, just play him from a rappel or in a stationary position where you'll get fried before you can even pull the trigger. If this were more of a personal list, I'd be putting BB way higher, but he's unfortunately just a little too weak to justify doing it. Fuse is the living embodiment of capitalizing off terrible players. If you get fuse kills, it's not because you did a good fuse, it's just because the enemy you killed is an idiot. That being said, getting into the right spots and actually getting those clusters off in the first place is a difficult task when facing roamers or C4 ops, meaning most of the time those fuses probably aren't leaving your inventory anyway. Doubling down as difficult and a bit useless makes fuse kinda garbage. Yes, the AK-12 does go burr, but that's why the much better operator Ace exists. If you pick fuse for the gun, just go play Ace instead. I just realized we're counting backwards, so there's not even gonna be a 69 on this list. But anyway, at number 60, we have Amaru. Gold rank stars are raging in the comments right now, but the truth is Amaru is a complete hit or miss. You're much better off and will be much more consistent if you play literally any other attacker on this list above Amaru, or even better, get good with multiple of them so you can pick the best op for each map and bomb site. Next we have IQ. IQ is a fine operator with decent weapons, but I definitely think she's majorly overpicked and ranked. The majority of people pick her just for the weapons, and the scanner is fairly weak unless you're playing against a Valkyrie, in which case she's viable and convenient, but not necessary. There are also so many other strong operators to bring to an attacking lineup, and if you have IQ in one of those slots, you're most likely missing out on someone better. Cav is not the greatest, but in the current meta, which seems to be just kill people, she isn't quite as bad as she once used to be. I really enjoyed playing her during my Copper to Diamond series, so if you're looking for someone fun, try her out. That being said, she's decent in most ranks, but once you reach the higher ranks, you can come to realize that she's very easily countered by good droning and cautious playstyles. At number 57, we have a fan favorite, Ashe. Ashe holes are stinky, and I really wish we had more of them because having nothing but 2 breaching rounds is a majorly underwhelming ability. I honestly just think that they should give Ashe 3 charges back because Zofia is still a much more appealing option. Ashe has a very niche spot of usefulness for if you want a large line of sight opened on a soft wall, but in most circumstances, it's just not necessary, like, ever. Ashe is primarily for breaking shit, and every other operator that has the same purpose does a better job of it. The only reason she's this high on this list is because her weapons are fantastic. Besides that, I didn't mean that, I'm sorry. Mav losing his grenades was super tough, being the only hard breacher that actually had them. Simultaneously, the EMP gadget was introduced into the game, so you don't really need to bring Mav at all anymore. His versatility was thrown in the trash when he lost his nades, and the risk of blowtorching a reinforcement soft has no rewards to it anymore. His purpose now lies in making lines of sight on reinforcements, which can be strong and is easy to do as a single player, but it's just not the same, man. Another operator that's also lost their touch a bit is Nomad. The nerf to Nomad in Year 7 Season 1.2 crippled her air jabs. They went from 2 seconds to 1.25 seconds of knockback and keep the affected defender prone simultaneously. This makes it extremely more difficult to capitalize off of them, and they act more as a notification that the enemy is there rather than that brick wall of flank watch. Most of the time she's unnecessary, and if you are smart enough, you can achieve the same cover using drones. She is still great for hop outs and baseline control, but she's just not the same Titan that she once was. I've also never really been a huge fan of Gridlock. Her slow movement and weak utility makes her a fairly unattractive pick to most players. However, her utility does have some solid uses. Having 4 tracks and 2 smokes can make for a lot of chaos for the other team while being multi-purposeful. She can use her tracks for flank watch, or even better in my opinion, using them aggressively on site for executes in combination with the smoke grenades. The smokes cover the tracks, making them more difficult to shoot by the defenders, and while the loud tracks deploy, you can be planting the bomb. Realistically, to get to this point, it does require a lot lot of work beforehand to clear the information, traps, and other utility, and overall, Gridlock is just not super strong in higher ranks. At 53, we have Mustache. Mustache has seen a rise in gameplay in the past couple seasons with the flashbang buff, the glass buff, and other reasons. His loadout is great, his mustache is better, and when used at the right time, he can make or break a round. He's a solid pick in the right round, but the right round doesn't come very often. If you're playing a team that's hitting you with smoke executes on every attack, then yes, play Warden for every defense. He's a solid counter to that annoying playstyle, but more often than not, his ability isn't a useful contribution to the team. Bandit is next to the chopping block with a decent placing. Bandit is an even better option since the introduction of the EMP gadget, as bandit tricking is one of the best counters for it. He has an incredible loadout, however, his ability is usually not necessary, and if the attacks are strongly coordinated, tricking also won't be effective, which can lead him to being a bit of a waste of a pick. Ella's up next, and she's lower than I'd like her to be. On release, she was a dominant force in R6, but nerf after nerf has dropped her into a measly 51st place. The Grismont mines barely even disorient the enemies anymore, allowing them to stay full speed, and the only real defect being sound reduction. Yes, the green visuals come up on the screen also, but it does practically nothing, as you can see fine after the first like half second. The thing that is nice about the mines is that they're very loud, giving the defenders an exceptional sound cue when an attacker has entered that area. The Scorpion is also good again, so she has a little bit going for her there, but overall, there's just better picks. Like Tachanka. Not really though, he's also semi-ass. Pros for Tachanka: incredible fast setups using his LMG, can make holes on the fly, and has incredible penetration abilities. Trust me, I know from personal experience. The cons are pretty heavy. The Shamika launcher is slow to get ready and makes you extremely vulnerable while using it. On top of that, the flames Tachanka makes aren't really that strong either. While they may be considered area denial, they don't really deny much when an attacker can straight up walk through the entire flame without dying. They have insane bounce and are quite difficult to navigate on the fly. However, a good lineup for a plant spot can be useful. You might be surprised to see Monty on this list before Blitz, but Monty is the overrated and overplayed shield of the two. Monty is great on a very few select sites and can be a lethal weapon against terrible defender coordination. That being said, in most instances, having a primary weapon or better operator utility is much more impactful and helpful. He's also a team-based op with low self-sufficiency, meaning if your team dies around you, it's not looking good. At number 48, we have Thunderbird. She's decent. I don't really have anything bad to say about Thunderbird, but I don't really have anything good to say either. Her Kona stations, while useful, can also be useful to the enemy team if they get to them. Spear recoil got nerfed slightly in the new season, taking her down a notch too, and Doc just got the biggest buff of his life, making him the more useful healer on most sites now. Thorn is next with one of the best defender weapons in the game, but it's partnered up with a fairly weak gadget. While lethal, decent players can avoid these traps quite easily due to the long activation time. They are good for information though, and can be useful against aggressiveness. If you want to get crazy and shoot a bunch of people, Thorn is probably the operator for you. Osa is a solid op, but only in some situations. Running her every round is not going to work against smart players that know to bring impacts the second time around, and she's also very site dependent. That being said, she can be super strong under the right circumstances, but still going to land at number 46. Smashing his way into number 45, we have Oryx. Oryx is a bit of a meathead, probably from all the head trauma, but he also allows players to have the playstyle of a meathead by swinging everything and running around with the T5. Outside of just pure shooting potential, Oryx doesn't have a lot to him, and he definitely lacks in utility for the team. Speaking of utility, Cade's utility has seen a major decline with the introduction of EMP gadgets, and he's gotten a little weaker with the loss of his 1.5 sight as well. Cade is still a valuable pick on many sites, but he's much easier to deal with now and much harder to be good with. His Electro Claws are still very valuable pieces of utility, but he can be outclassed by many other defenders now. At number 43, we have Blowjob Man. His job of blowing reinforced walls up makes him a good asset to any attack, but in most cases he's outclassed by the likes of Hibana or Ace. His breaches are big, but he's not super versatile. When picking Thermite, you have to know whether your teammates are going to help you or not, because if they don't, those Thermite charges will most likely end up unused, and you'll end up wishing you had picked somebody else. At number 42, we have Doc after the greatest glow up of his entire career. Ever since Doc's buff of getting the Bailiff pistol and his stims going to 200 HP each, he is a much scarier pick. The benefit of being able to help out on the site setup in the prep phase while continuing to be able to massacre in the action phase makes him a slightly better pick than Thunderbird now on the majority of sites. Clash is probably higher on this list than most people would like, but the truth is that Clash is actually a good operator. In combination with a solid duo, or even better, a full 5-stack, Clash can single-handedly brick wall the other team. She can be very difficult to deal with if it's a smart player on the shield, and she just soaks up utility for the team. But I get it, toxic, loser, blah blah blah, cry more, so bad, cry more. Finka lost some serious power power when losing her nades, but her LMG is still pretty good even after recent nerfs. Her ability is just as strong as it used to be, but without the nades, she isn't quite the individual powerhouse killing machine that she was previously. LMG still go burr though. Yoyo's making an explosive entrance at number 39, and by explosive I mean has potential, but kind of is like that kid that nobody pays attention to, but they do a cool trick once in a while. You know what I'm saying. Yoyo is alright, nothing special. For lack of better words, he's mid. He can either be perfect if the round plays out the right way, or it can be completely useless. It all depends on what happens and whether or not your teammates are actually smart enough to shoot the damn canisters when the time comes. We have Zero Bitches next on the chopping block. Zero is actually a solid operator, especially on Chalet and Bank. Some people think he's extremely underrated, others think he's not great at all. I think he has his specialties like everyone else, but is situationally decent. In other words, he's good enough when picked for the right sites, and underwhelming at best when picked for the wrong ones. With most likely his highest placement in the history of R6 tier list and ranking videos, we have Blitz. I am a major Blitz fan, and I think he's extremely underrated as an operator. Playing enemies who have better aim than you? Pick Blitz. Having trouble clearing those roamers? Blitz is your man. Aggressive defenders who keep clapping your cheeks, a good old flash to the forehead, and a pistol whip never looked more pleasing. Blitz is a great heat of the moment pick, but picking him long term will most likely result in disappointment. And what better way to disappoint a Blitz player than picking our next op, Legion. Legion is a solid info op with a great weapon. He can single-handedly cover a lot of ground, make some nice plays, and is just a solid average pick. His goo mines aren't insane by any means, but I'd rate them like a solid 6.5 out of 10 in terms of the usefulness. The best part about him is definitely the T5 though. Glaz is next in line, and this is a tough one for me. A lot of people underestimate the strength of Glaz, as he can be devastating, especially in a team setting. The smoke Glaz playstyle is one of a kind, and you can't do all the crazy smoke plays without a Glaz. Again, only bust him out once in a while though, because after making an epic Glaz play, the Warden pick is right around the corner. That being said, you can create a lot of space out of very little using his smokes, and he's just a great guy to bring to the roster. Vigil is a solid operator, and the better players you play against, the better he becomes. Even when the enemy team isn't droning, he's got a great set of weapons and impact grenades to use on the roam as you so choose. Vigil is the crux of cautious players who drone a lot, as he can keep shooting their drones, reposition, and most importantly, waste time. Maestro is a seriously good operator who has somewhat fallen off with the game's meta becoming so much more aggressive and kill oriented. However, he still lands in a decent position on this list, with those bubbles being so effective when they're not destroyed by the attackers, and that LMG being a top tier weapon for a defender. Moving on to one of the worst weapons, we have the UMP45 on Pulse. Now that Pulse also has the 1.5 sight on the UMP, he feels less like a neglected child left to fend for themselves, and more like a man that goes to a 9-to-5 job and provides for his family. Pulse is a solid operator that changes the dynamic of how attackers have to play. If they don't target the Pulse should target them, feeding information to his team and pulling off the classic C4 kill from below. The copious amounts of information he can gain on the attackers is underrated as hell, and overall he's a decent pick most of the time. And on the opposite side of the coin, we have Capitao. Instead of copious amounts of information, he has copious amounts of utility. With 2 flame bolts, 2 smoke bolts, a Gon 6, and 2 hard breach tools, Capitao brings an arsenal of utility to the attack. You can use the Gon 6 to destroy a bulletproof or Maestro camera on site, getting rid of the defender information, and then use the smoke and flame bolts together to trap the defenders out and plant the diffuser. On top of that, he can be that backup or secondary hard breacher that the team needs. When I think of Cap, I think of Club, because that is a map you can run him on literally every single site. So good. Jackal is one of the most annoying operators you can play against. When the attackers have dookie droning and you feel like you've made a great play to sneak up behind them, the next thing you know is that you got foot fetish over here sniffing your toes and ruining your day. Realistically, Jackal is a good option if you feel like your team's droning is not quite cutting it. He makes it easier to roam clear and has a great weapon, but he's unnecessary when the other team is staying within close proximity to the bomb site. Speaking of annoying operators, we have Ying. Ying makes bad players great, to the point where you can literally make an entire video on only knifing people using Ying as your main attacker for the job. Having 4 Candelas and 2 smoke grenades, you can cover a lot of ground. Direct sight hits, roam clearing, or plant executes are all within Ying's capabilities. However, a stray ADS or Wamidus can put a kink in those plants. Flores is number 28 on this list, being a strong operator with a lot of talent, blowing shit up. 4 Rotaro drones makes it practically impossible for defenders to keep their utility alive unless they bring out the big bad mute, which takes Flores from S tier to useless. Mute is a majorly hard counter for this dude, and I'm personally not a huge fan of the AR-33 either. That being said, when he works wonders and makes it much easier for your team to get shit done and win the round. Mozzie is one of the most fun operators in R6, being a 3-speed with 2 awesome weapons, a C4, and most importantly, an Australian accent. He runs around risking his life all while wearing a fucking dirt bike helmet. Like, come on, how badass can you be? Not only does Mozzie make it more difficult for the attackers to gather info, but then he can use it against them. Whether he's shocking their drones with their teammates' Twitch drones or using them to C4 through the floor, he's kind of a beast. His real only downside is that the average player barely drones during a round, so if you ever can't find a drone, you're just crap out of luck. Plus, moving them around the map takes forever. Speaking of terrorizing people with Twitch drones, it's Twitch. Twitch is a solid op, but I think people underestimate the power of zapping the default cameras. Doing this early on forces the defenders to keep on guessing where you might be coming from, and they can't use those cams to safely watch their back. It spreads their players thin and really forces them to be cautious of any direction you might be coming from. More obviously, tasing all the defender utility limits their resources. Then again, if you lose your drones, you're nothing but a gal with a gun and a dream. Well, mine might be much lower here than many people expect. He's a good operator, but the biggest downside is that you have to stay alive to get good use out of him. In an increasingly aggressive and fast-paced meta, Wamai is sliding down the ranks a little bit. Jaeger is more optimal and has less risk associated, plus most people nade through the floor these days anyway. Wamai is a safe pick, he's just easily outclassed and honestly, kind of basic. Lion is another basic pick, but he is just so damn easy to use. Teammates going through some shit? Call a scan. See an enemy on a drone? Call a scan. He's so simple, yet so effective, and on top of that, he's got a 50-round drum mag with a 2-time sight. Beaming people down is his specialty, however, skills that are easy to learn have smaller skill ceilings than advanced skills that are harder to learn, landing Lion in number 24. While Castle is another operator that is easy to use, you can become very effective with him with the right mindset. Coming up with strong Castle strategies isn't the easiest thing to do, but they are very effective. Weak Castle strategies like castling your team into the bomb site is not recommended, but full-on roam setups with confusing pathways and intricate design are some of the most brutal setups to push into as an attacker. Castle is a devastating operator if used properly. Rook is next in line and the highest this dude has ever reached in his whole career. For 7 years of Rainbow Six, Rook plates have been practically garbage, and picking Rook only made sense if you wanted to spawn peek with a higher zoom scope. But now that everyone on your team can self-revive on top of the 20 HP boost they get, picking Rook has never been better. The 20 HP boost to everyone is a guaranteed benefit that you get, and the self-resurrection is kind of ridiculous. The MP5 with a 2-time sight is a one-of-a-kind defender weapon, and overall Rook is just shoot, kill, and have fun. Zofia is going to take the cake over Rook though as a more strategically sound operator. Opening castles, destroying bulletproof cameras, shields, and Malusi gadgets are all just a start to her destructive capabilities. She may only have 2 impacts similar to Ashe, but more importantly those impacts are accompanied by her 2 concussion grenades, which allow her to be extremely self-sufficient in clearing utility. Not only that, but they can be used to provide valuable information and or disorient the defending team. She is a powerhouse of a solo operator and a very strong pick. Jaeger qualifies for the top 20 as a classic, sturdy, beginner-friendly pick. The second you place down those ADSs, you're soaking up the attacker's utility while protecting yours. He adds safety and stability to a defense with a great weapon to go with him. You're not seeing anything too special with Jaeger, you know what you're gonna get every single time. Aruni, or Get Fisted as I like to call her, is the bionic cyborg warrior of R6 who brings a lot to the defense. Her fist allows for quick lines of sight and assistance on the setups, but can also act as a tool to quickly drop down hatches and escape on the fly. The gates are great information, but are also great for protecting utility, and the fact you can reset them makes them even better. She has 2 great weapons and an intricate playstyle that allows for a lot of surprises to spice up the defense and keep attackers on their toes. Buck is really good, but he goes unnoticed by many players as he lives in this massive shadow of Sledge. Ever since he lost his nades, he just isn't the powerhouse that he used to be, but he is still really good at what he does. Plus, he recently got the Gon 6, giving him a little extra edge to his arsenal. With quick breaching from above, below, and to the side, Buck can be lethal in the right hands. Buck's Canadian counterpart Frost is next on the list with traps that will blow your back out. I find they're best used on staircases and windows that are frequently hopped in by the attackers, but they just make for amazing tools when you position yourself near them. Either the attacker hops in looking at you and dies to the trap, or hops in looking at the trap as you shoot them in the side of the head. It's a win-win. Frost also has the ITA shotgun for quick setups and the 1.5 sight on a gun that literally has no recoil. She is a beast of solo queue setup strategies and deserves a solid ranking of number 17 on this list. Thatcher is up next at number 16, despite the fact that some people think he's useless now. Thatcher is still very strong, especially in a team setting. EMP gadgets can be a struggle against Cade Claws, and depending on the hard breacher you have, things can go south very quickly. Thatcher simplifies that process and is still a very good operator to run most of the time. I did make a video on the concept of the different counters to EMP gadgets, why Thatcher is good, and talked about the hard breaches a little bit if you want a better explanation on all of this. So yes, Thatcher is still good, just not as unique anymore since the EMP gadgets are sometimes a suitable replacement.
Number 15. The last thing you'd want in your Burger King burger is
Hibana. Hibana is a top dog hard breach these days. She's the best for hatches, has a great set of weapons and utility, and is one of the most, if not the most versatile of all the hard breachers. You can play make with her, create unique lines of sight from a distance, and she's not entirely reliant on her team thanks to the vast options that she has. The real only downside to her is the size of the breaches she can make and the length of time it takes to actually activate her X-Kairos. The small breaches make for less optimal entries, and the long delay on the X-Kairos make them the easiest to trick of all the hard breach devices. Nothing breaks a rat player's heart more than walking into a Malusi wub. Beepers and traps you can get around with the help of a twitch drone or a suppressed bullet, but in order to get a Malusi wub cleared, you gotta let off a big ol' explosion or at least walk into it and tell the enemy that you're there. It's by far the best trap utility for information alone, and that's without even discussing the main effect of the gadget. The added slowness is very strong in this highly aggressive meta, making her one of the best ops for the place and go playstyle. Lucky number 13 is Dokkaebi. With a new buff to the phone calls affecting the dead defenders too, Dokkaebi can be used as a knock-like operator who can disable the cameras on an execute to walk in the back and shoot the defenders with their backs turned. She can also use her calls to hunt down roamers early on and hack the camps to use against the defenders for the rest of the round. This gives the attack an insane amount of information while limiting the defenders. The best part of all of this though is that she makes being aggressive even easier. Aggressiveness does have a downside though, and that's carelessness. Being aggressive is quick, and when you're working quickly, you start to get a little sloppy. Like, you might not check for Capcan traps. Capcan is one of my favorite operators this season with an incredible weapon, a 1.5 sight, a C4, and the potential for multiple bonus kills via his traps. There's many different ways to use the traps, whether it's for information, early round, or late round. It's super easy just to set and forget those traps and maybe land yourself a couple free kills that could even save the round. This next operator is super underrated and can be played in a variety of ways that are unexplored by the average player. It's Echo. Echo's yokais are most commonly used for plant denial late in the round, but that's actually the worst way to play them. They are much more powerful and consistent when used early in the round to stall time and assist roamers. That way you can feed info to your teammates for C4 kills or guide them through the map to distract and stun attackers. Your teammates can swing off the blast and get the freebies or use the time stall to escape and reposition. There's really so much you can do with this dude, and it's a shame to see his potential wasted by the average player. Now we're finally at those top 10 operators in Rainbow Six, with number 10 being Mira. Mira can single-handedly cockblock the attackers if they don't have the right utility to deal with her windows, and can take them anywhere she likes to say, hey man, you're not pushing this way, go somewhere else. She works to funnel attackers into other areas of the map, or pay the price if they choose to deal with them head on. Smoke grenades are probably the strongest counter to her, but of course you need to stay weary of the twitch drones too. Playing a Mira window takes patience. The longer you wait, the less they'll think you're going to swing, making their pre-fire less likely and your kill on them more likely. We've seen a serious rise in knock gameplay this year, and since many other operators lost their grenades, her having them makes her an even more attractive choice. Knock is the queen of tricks in this game. The defenders think they're safe when really they're not. The FMG9 is a zero recoil laser beam, and she is the best operator in the game right now to lurk with. If you can keep her drones alive to provide information for yourself, you can use the nades alongside her ability to single-handedly annihilate defenses. That is if you can get past Alibi, of course, which Knock is actually also immune to with her ability active. But anyway, Alibi is a beast. She's fast, has a bailiff, a shield, and for some reason they decided to give her a 1.5 sight. She has the most lethal loadout on the defense, plus her clones are great under windows or any areas where the base of them can't be directly shot. The Prismas aren't the strongest utility in the game by any means, but her deadly loadout definitely makes up for it, landing her at number 8. Topping her just slightly at number 7 is Valkyrie. Valk's cameras are fantastic in higher ranks especially, or just any rank where people actually use their fucking mic like the game is intended for. They allow for guidance, push direction, plant denial, and the good old C4 through the floor. It's a fantastic counter to vertical play, and if you put in the work, you can find some incredibly good cameras. While Cade and Clash are banned at every other rank in the game, up in Diamond and Champ, it's Mira and Valk nearly every time. And ever since Mav lost his nades, Ace has taken his spot for the best hard breacher in the game. Having the AK-12, aka the best gun in the game, the fastest breaching of all the hard breachers, and the biggest nuts, Ace is on top of his game. He can do both ranged and close breaches at respectable sizes, and can even get shields if needed. If you run out of soft breach, you can also sacrifice your Selmas on the floor for vertical play, and overall he's an incredibly well-rounded pick for ranked. At number 5 we have Mute. Mute is another commonly misused op that's held back from his potential too frequently. Wall denial should be the last place to go with him in my opinion, as he's the best operator in the game for info denial. Placing mute jammers on roams or popular drone routes ruins the attacker's info and wastes a ton of time. He can protect utility from Flores drones and has a sick loadout to back it up. The M5 shotgun allows him to set up everything he needs, and the SMG-11 is lethal. C4 to top it off, making Mute clap the cheeks of the 60 ops below him. And here we have the second best attacker in the game, according to me. It's Yana. Yana's clones are extremely powerful, essentially just being infinite drones for yourself. They recharge quick, and you can get up to 4 or 5 of them throughout the round. You can use them to bait defenders into peeking you, or just gather tons and tons of control. The G36 with a 1.5 is a laser beam, and accompanying the information from her clones with 2 grenades allows for more precise grenades that take less guesswork. She is my number 1 solo queue pick, and if you're hating on Yana, maybe it's time to rethink why. Number 3 is Azami. Azami's release this year shook up the game. The creativity you can unleash on this operator is literally endless, with one-way angles, cutting off lines of sight, and patching up breaches. This dude literally uses Azami to block off the entire breach and defuse the bomb. Genius. Your Kiba barriers also charge super quick, meaning you don't have to worry too much about dying with them in your back pocket. Azami is an op that is very easy to use, but you can just keep getting better and better with her. Number 2 is Sledge. This rating might seem extremely high, but he stands for everything R6 is about. He smashes walls, he smashes utility, he smashes floors, he smashes moms. Probably. He's very beginner friendly, but also high competition friendly. He's good in every rank and every lobby. You can literally never go wrong with picking Sledge, and on a round-to-round basis, there is always something you are able to do with him. He is my number 1 attacker in R6 and number 2 overall. And at number 1, the best operator in the game is none other than Smoke. The SAS ops are clearly the dominant task force here, but Smoke is indescribably powerful. The classic Smoke anchor style is a fantastic way to play him, but the options are actually limitless in how you play Smoke. You can use him on the roam to cut off lines of sights or angles to isolate fights, while using the shotgun to make vertical holes and escape down hatches. Or you can extend out a bit and use the smoke grenades to stall time in the mid round. Of course you can deny plants with them too, or you can just use them to cut off the covering attackers and pursue the planner instead. He is a retake monster while having strong secondary utility and creating the optimal site setup for himself. Smoke is an op you can be consistently improving on even at the highest level of R6, and he is undeniably the best operator in Rainbow Six Siege. Smoke might be the best operator in R6, but what if you weren't allowed to use guns? I asked this question last week when I played knife only in ranked, which is this video right here. It might even make you smile, but not as much as I would smile if you subscribed to the channel or replied in the comments with your favorite op, followed by your favorite map, so I know that you made it to the end of the video. Here's mine, just 2 words, no context, okay? Okay, bye guys.